All right, hello and welcome to the Carl Jackson Show, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. We've got a lot that I'd like to talk about, basically aimed at Kamala Harris, or on the topic of Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris appeared on Bret Baier's show. She appeared on Charlemagne, I hate saying the God, Charlemagne's show. Charlemagne is not a god, but anyway, that's the podcast that she appeared on. And I don't think that she made any headway. She also decided that she wanted to release a list of ways in which she would like to pander to black men. I don't think any of this stuff is going to be working for her. My guest joining me now is Tristan Justice. He's a author or a columnist for The Federalist, and he wrote a column a couple of days ago called "Kamala Harris Repeats Biden's 2012 Back in Chains comment." I read that column, loved the column. Actually, I read a column a couple of weeks ago, Tristan, but I don't think we could get you on then. But I read this. He's written more since. Check him out at The Federalist. But I wanted to get his reaction to what we just witnessed on Bret Baier's program. Let me just get your initial reaction to that, if I could, Tristan, that interview with Bret Baier.
Well, these are the kinds of interviews that she really should have been doing right as soon as she became the de facto nominee in July. And I think that lack of experience really showed tonight, 3 weeks before Election Day, that she hasn't been pushed in difficult interviews under a critical spotlight. She has been too comfortable going to outlets that are favorable to her. And I think, less than 3 weeks to go, it might be a little too late, but it was definitely interesting to watch her get out of her comfort zone. And I think her inexperience being pushed like that, especially over the past 3 years being vice president, really showed.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I want to play a video clip. This is Bret Baier. This is video clip number 8, Gabe. Bret Baier pushing her on the issue of the border crisis. And remember, this woman has been in office for 3.5 years. Joe Biden, as well as Joe Biden's VP. They got into the office. They had the White House. They had the Senate. They had the House. And yet here's her answer when Bret Baier pushes her on the issue of illegal immigration. Let's roll video clip number 8, please, Gabe.
And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
Six Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you,
but actually is focused on fixing it.
6 Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it.
Okay, so actually, Tristan, that wasn't the video that I was looking for, but that is one worth responding to. Anyway, obviously, this bill that they're talking about, 1.8 million illegals would have been allowed into the country. And this is the bill that she keeps saying that Trump torpedoed, despite the fact that Trump has no political power right now.
Yeah, not really blame Senate Republicans for this talking point that the Democrats have just been gifted with this election. And I wrote a column about it, that this was going to happen back when the bill failed earlier at the end of this last winter, or must have been early spring. But I remember when this bill failed and the Democrats had already run as like the Senate Democrat campaign ad, trashing Republicans for blocking progress on the border. And we knew this was coming, and it's unfortunate that we have Senate Republicans who are so kind of out of lockstep with what their own party want, their own voters want. I mean, the bill was such a middle finger to actual Republicans in the party who actually wanted to solve this crisis, when it was just asylum for all, 5,000 border crossings a day, legalized. It really just codified the border crisis. But of course, now Democrats have this talking point that it was Republicans who are continuing this crisis, and it's directly at the feet of Mitch McConnell and James Lankford.
Tristan, why do we always, well, not we, but why do Republicans always fall for this? You're absolutely right. They just gave the Democrats a talking point. Thank God Kamala Harris is such a bad candidate. We may be able to overcome it. But why are they so weak where they fall for stuff like this? You get one senator that supports this bill, and then all of a sudden it's bipartisan legislation and they have the talking point, and then you don't have Republicans that do an effective job combating it. How are we always in this position, seemingly?
I think it's largely a consequence of the consultant class in Washington, D.C. I think there is too many consultants in D.C. giving Republicans bad advice. And I think it's largely because, frankly, the cultural currents in D.C. itself make Republicans so hungry to conform with their neighbors. I think kind of this Hunger Games style capital that we have between Maryland and Virginia kind of feeds this kind of culture of conformity and consultants giving politicians bad advice when they go back to their home states. And I think that's why a lot of the most, I'd say, effective Republican senators on behalf of their voters tend to come from states like Missouri and Utah. You have Mike Lee and Josh Hawley and Tom Cotton. They're not from Virginia. They're not from. So I think a lot of it has to do with the kind of consultants that we have coming out of Washington.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Although, I mean, Langford seems like he started off seeming like a strong conservative guy, but I just don't understand how he fell for that absolute and utter nonsense. It's just a shame to me. The video clip that I wanted to show you, we don't have, but basically it was Bret Baier asking Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, the question, how many illegals have entered the country? And then she basically, filibustered. She never gave him an answer, but I mean, I'm sure to people that are diehard Kamala Harris supporters, she was very combative with Brit Hume, and I'm seeing some of the Twitter or the X reaction. I'm sure they would love that. But do you think she did herself any justice with the independent and moderate voters, once again, not being able to answer the question on the border crisis?
No.
Easy enough.
This is such an impossible issue for her, this election. I think the Democrats know it. I think the Democrats know that of all issues, this is her Achilles heel, being the border czar for 4 years. She hated getting the assignment 3 years ago. Her staff complained about it to the New York Times. They complained that she was being set up to fail in the new administration. And of course, being director of the White House Space Council fared no better. Now we have astronauts who are stuck in space for half this year. But no, I think the border and the economy are the two most important issues for voters this election. Every single poll seems to show that Democrats are running this entire campaign on abortion. Abortion is just not as important as the economy and immigration in this election. Republicans have an answer for it, which is Republicans have largely the platform for the Republican Party today would be pro-choice 10 years ago, and I think Americans are starting to. The Republican Party is where Americans are, which is where abortion is legal with certain restrictions. Democrats are embracing this on-demand abortion, whenever, wherever, how many abortions you want, however many abortions you can get, and it's so far away from the safe, legal, and rare paradigm that was espoused by the Clinton administration in the 90s. And so there's no question that the Democrats are vulnerable on the top two issues of this campaign. It's probably what's going to tank them in November.
Yeah, from your mouth to God's ears. And it does appear like that's happening, at least if we're to believe the polls today. Kamala Harris is not doing well with the polls. Obviously, national polls, there's been polling that she's not doing as well there. I know those aren't as important because what's going to matter in the end are the swing states. But I think it does say something in general about her campaign. And I also think it says something, Tristan, that all of a sudden she's willing to do all of these interviews that she was not willing to do before. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not convinced that doing some of these interviews would have helped her. I mean, today, to me, she came across as so condescending. She still didn't seem like she was studied up. She seemed like she was on on the total defense. And honestly, watching her, maybe if Democrats are unaware, but at least for me, knowing that she lost over 90% of her staff as vice president over the last couple or few years or what have you, I look at her and I listen to her and I'm like, she is so cutting and condescending. And every interview that I've seen her in, whether they're friendly or whether it's Bret Baier, I'm not finished talking. I'm not finished. And I'm like, you say the same thing over and over. You're done. I mean, for God's sakes.
Yeah, Look, I'm getting major 2016 vibes in this election. The Democrats are running this kind of girl power campaign that's infused with celebrities as if it's going to translate into votes across the suburbs. And it might in some areas of the country. But once again, Trump is being, I think, underestimated for a third time. At this point, I just look at polls, especially 3 weeks before an election, just take Trump +5. Harris is already behind so many polls by 5, 6, 7, 8 points from where Biden and Clinton were in the past 2 elections. And frankly, for a Democrat nominee, you need to be much higher than that. And so I think we're looking at the possible red wave that failed to materialize 2 years ago. I think Americans have some regret about that red wave not coming to fruition, but at this point, with 2.5 weeks to go, at this point, you just let the voters vote, and it's down to ballot harvesting. Whichever party's more efficient, they'll take home the winning.
All right. I'm speaking to Tristan Justice of The Federalist. You can check him out on X at Justice Tristan. So a little twist there at Justice Tristan. Check out his columns at The Federalist. We'll be back with more after the break. I want to talk about Kamala's racism. We'll be back. This is the Carl Jackson Show. A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving MyPillow with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss, and it's your gain. For the first time ever, you can get a standard classic MyPillow for wholesale prices. That's just $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, they're offering their entire classic collection at wholesale prices. You can get the queen size MyPillow for just $18.88. You can upgrade to a king for only $1 more. You can get the body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.88. Go to MyPillow.com, use the promo code Carl, or call 800-858-0263 to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever. On top of that, receive free shipping on orders that are over $75. They have never been offered this low before. OK, so there are limited quantities at this price. So the limit is 10. And once they're gone, they are gone. So go to mypillow.com or give them a call at 800-858-0263 and use the promo code Carl, C-A-R-L. I don't spell it like the commie, to get the standard MyPillow for only $14.88. That's the lowest price ever. And also know that you're supporting American manufacturing and American jobs, along with getting a good night's rest. MyPillow.com, promo code Carl. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Again, I'm joined by my guest, Tristan Justice of the Federalist. Make sure you check out his columns at The Federalist. Also, you can check him or find him on X at Justice Tristan. Tristan, where else can people go to find you? Or you've got a book out as well. So where can people go to find that?
I have a book coming out.
I'm sorry. I'm
very excited. No. November 12th, it'll be all over Twitter, of course. Just about everything is on my Twitter, at Justice Tristan. That's spelled with an A at the end. And my book will be out November 12th.
Okay. All right, good. So we have that to look forward to. So you will be out with the book on, and what is the name of the book? Is it Social Justice Redux? Is that the name of the book?
That's my subset. We are workshopping the title this week, but
okay.
The book is on the obesity epidemic and how big food and big pharma are funding the body positivity movement to keep us that sick and depressed.
Oh man, I love that. Okay, we're gonna have to get you back on. Recently, I've been speaking. I don't know if you've ever heard of this website called beefnews.org, but it's basically farmers that have come together. They've sued the Biden administration. They've talked about how the federal government literally basically has some farmers grow stuff that they know isn't great for people. But it's what some of them have to do to survive. And the FDA ratings are a complete and utter joke. So anyway, I'm looking forward to, I'd love to have you back on for that. That sounds very fascinating. All right. So here's what I want to do. Real quick, I want to play. Gabe got another video together for us during the break. Gabe, if you would go ahead and roll that video. This is Kamala Harris yet again on Brett Baer's program talking about the issue of the border. This is how it started. Let's go ahead and roll it, please, Gabe.
Let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara cartel to people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career going after people who present a threat to the safety of the American people and cross our border with the intent of doing us harm and cross our border illegally. And I will do that work as vice president. I take that work quite seriously.
Okay, so still not the part of the video that I was looking for, but still, let me get your reaction to that. Again, the part of the video that I was looking for was and I sent that to Gabe, so that is my bad. But the part of the video that I was specifically looking for, again, was Kamala Harris not being willing to answer how many illegals have come through the border. But there she is, Tristan, touting her record as a prosecutor, as a DA for California. And I'm sorry, I'm like, what does that have to do with you being vice president or border czar?
Well, it's not. It's a question she's not going to answer. There's very few questions on immigration that she wants to answer, and there's some that she's just never going to. And does she even know the number? I think that's an open question. She should. She's the vice president, the border czar. She denies it. The media denies it. The media called her a border czar for 4 years and then denied they ever called her such thing. But no, I mean, again, this is her Achilles heel, and she does these performative trips to the border and attacks Republicans for not wanting to solve the problem. Republicans have been screaming about the border for 20 years now. If there's ever political movement to deal with the border, it's within the Republican Party. And it was this. I just think people are woefully uneducated about that border bill that the Democrats keep bringing up again and again and again, and just how bad that law was. Really, just codifying the incumbent crisis that Democrats have deliberately engineered to pump in millions of new voters into the country. And that might sound like a conspiracy, but then you have Nancy Pelosi saying that out loud on Bill Maher's show a month ago, saying the goal is to move them from undocumented to documented. And so Democrats have been saying this in plainly themselves. And so there's just some questions that Kamala Harris is just not going to answer. But it was about time she got asked it, because to my knowledge, to my recollection, I don't think she had been seriously pushing the border in such an effective way until tonight.
Yeah, and it's such a sad commentary. I mean, honestly, it frustrates me. I shouldn't be shocked or I'm not shocked by it, but I'm frustrated at some of the pushback that I see on X from people on the left. And I'm sitting here thinking, listen, you guys are supposed to be her boss. You should want her to answer questions like that. But obviously, if you're on the left, you feel moral. And which brings me to this topic. Again, I'm speaking to Tristan Justice of The Federalist. Find him on X at Justice Tristan. You wrote a column for The Federalist. Kamala Harris repeats Biden's 2012 back in change moment. I want to talk about this and also the identity politics that are obviously playing in this very election cycle. And I don't think they're going to work, Josh, or I'm sorry, Tristan. I apologize about that. Let me read just some of what you wrote. No other Democrat the party could have nominated this year better exemplifies the left's obsession with identity politics than Vice President Kamala Harris. Woke but not poor, black but not oppressed, and pissed off when talking about her uterus. No Democrat who ran in 2019 is more emblematic of a character shaped by the far left hysterics around social justice, quote unquote. I think you're absolutely right, but for some reason, it's not working for Kamala Harris. Why do you suspect that is?
Well, like I said, Kamala Harris is the mascot for identity politics, right? I mean, there is not a candidate who could have better represented that kind of identity within the party than Kamala Harris, who's explicitly picked, by the way. Joe Biden laid out his criteria explicitly based on race and gender for his vice presidential nominee. But now you have Kamala Harris really campaigning in the way that probably everyone predicted that she would, and that is playing to her crowd in identity politics, playing to that lane in American politics. And so she's offering special economic benefits to preferred groups based on race, and of course she is kind of weaponizing these racial grievances that Barack Obama really did when he first came to stardom and under the Bush era. And so I think that's what makes Kamala Harris a very divisive candidate. She talks about her blended family as if there's some bizarre movement against blended families in America. and so kind of see Kamala Harris playing to the worst impulses of identity politics in this campaign.
And frankly, I think when people are hungry and people are struggling to put food on their tables and gas in their car and a roof over their head, it seems like identity politics goes by the wayside. And quite frankly, Tristan, we've lived through this. This is a lady that's basically another rendition, if you will, Barack Obama, but not nearly as smart. And I think that this stuff is just, I think it's run its course. But let me get your take on this. Some of the things that Kamala Harris offered to provide, and just for the sake of time, we won't play the videos by Charlemagne. She was on Charlemagne's podcast the other day or yesterday, and she talked about reparations and how she would give serious considerations for that. I want to touch on these other points, but real quick, just give us your reaction to that. Reparations, do you think that'll help her with black men this election cycle, or period, with moderates and independents?
Well, I think it's definitely going to alienate moderates and independents. I don't think Americans across the board really broadly support the idea that we need to pay people who are not slaves because pay people who are not slaves, but being paid for by people who never owned slaves. And so I think you just breed even more racial resentment when you do things like that. So I don't think it's going to help her electorally. I think she's, again, just playing to her base. And I think they're having an issue with black voter turnout in this election. I think that's what they're predicting. And I don't think there is this kind of broad national excitement about having a black candidate on the ticket like there was in 2008. I do think the country was captured in some type of euphoria when Obama was nominated. But I think that kind of sugar high from a two-term black president has kind of fallen by now, 25 years into the 21st century.
You know, Tristan, this is a very important point you make, because if you're right, and I hope you are, that would suggest that a lot of Americans are just past this racial nonsense, that this racial divisiveness that the Democrat Party constantly tries to stoke. And now they're just focused on policy. And I believe this is why I don't believe this stuff is going to work for Kamala Harris. We have just a minute left. Let me get your comments on some of the proposals that she has, a couple of them anyway. She'll provide 1 million loans that are fully forgivable, up to $20,000 for black entrepreneurs and others to start a business. If you would just replace the word black with white, I suspect that the media elites would be going insane here, Tristan. Also, she wants to legalize recreational marijuana, because that's what black men like me want. We want more weed. We don't want jobs, apparently.
I'll just end with this on the identity politics thing. Look, I'm gay, you're black, no one cares. That's the whole ethos of American life today in America. I mean, conservatives especially, just the whole thing is you don't care. And sadly, we have half this country that seems to see nothing but identity in terms of race and sexual orientation and gender. And I think it's divisive. I think it breeds resentment among our neighbors. And I just think across the board, it's bad for the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, is it your newsletter, Tristan?
Oh, yes, Social Justice Redo. And there's a link to it on my Twitter page, too.
Okay, so at Justice Tristan, check him out. Check out his columns. I love reading them. And I hope that we can have you back soon. God bless you, man.
Thank you.